told everyone to stay away. But when he walked into his home, he found a stranger kneeling by his daughter's bedside, and she refused to leave. Who is this woman? And why is she risking everything for a child that isn't hers? Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you like the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. The Arizona territory stretched endlessly beneath a merciless sun, its red earth cracked and thirsting for rain that refused to come. It was the summer of 1873, and the Apache village nestled in the canyon had seen better days. Disease had swept through like wildfire, claiming the young and old alike, leaving behind grief that settled as heavy as the dust on every surface. Neshoba, whose name meant wolf in his people's tongue, rode his painted horse through the narrow canyon entrance, with the weight of the world pressing against his broad shoulders. At 28 winters, he had already earned his place as one of the tribe's most respected warriors, known for his strength, his wisdom beyond his years, and his unwavering dedication to protecting his people. His long black hair, bound with leather cord, fell past his shoulders, and his dark eyes held both the fierceness of a predator and the gentleness of a father. His muscular frame, honed by years of hunting and fighting, moved with the fluid grace of someone completely at home in this harsh landscape. But today, none of his strength mattered. His daughter, Kiona, lay burning with fever in their dwelling, and he had ridden for 3 days to the distant trading post, hoping to find medicine that might save her. The white man's sickness had taken his wife 2 summers ago, and he would not lose his daughter too. The small leather pouch at his side contained herbs and tinctures the trader had promised might help, though Neshoba trusted white men about as much as he trusted rattlesnakes. As he approached his home, he noticed something strange. The entrance flap moved and he heard voices inside. His jaw tightened. He had left specific instructions with his sister, Halona, to keep everyone away. Kiona needed rest and quiet, not the constant stream of worried visitors who had been coming since she fell ill 4 days ago. Neshoba dismounted in one smooth motion, his moccasins making no sound as he strode toward the dwelling. He pushed aside the flap and stepped inside, his eyes taking a moment to adjust to the dimmer light. What he saw made him freeze. A white woman knelt beside his daughter's sleeping mat, her back to him, gently pressing a cool cloth to Kiona's forehead. She wore a simple dark dress, dusty from travel, and her auburn hair was pulled back in a practical bun, though several strands had escaped to frame her face. Halona stood nearby, wringing her hands nervously, clearly torn between respecting her brother's wishes and allowing this stranger to help. "What is this?" Neshoba's voice cut through the quiet like a blade, speaking in English for the white woman's benefit. "I gave orders, no one sees my daughter." The woman turned, and Neshoba found himself looking into eyes the color of summer sky. She was younger than he had first thought, perhaps 25, with a face that would have been beautiful if not marked by obvious exhaustion and grief. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her skin was pale despite the harsh sun outside. But there was steel in those blue eyes, a determination that reminded him of a cornered mountain lion. "Your daughter is very sick," the woman said, her voice steady despite the obvious tension in the room. "She needs constant care, and your sister cannot do it alone. I have experience with fevers." "I did not ask for your help, white woman," Neshoba replied, his tone cold. "Leave, now." The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. She carefully folded the cloth she had been using and set it in the wooden bowl beside her, then slowly rose to her feet. She was tall for a woman, though still a full head shorter than Neshoba. "My name is Catherine Morgan, not white woman, and I will not leave." The sheer audacity of her words struck Neshoba silent for a moment. No one, especially not a white woman, spoke to him this way. He was aware of his sister's sharp intake of breath, of the tension that suddenly filled the small space like smoke. "You refuse?" His voice dropped dangerously low. "You come into my home uninvited. You touch my daughter without permission, and now you refuse to leave when I order it?" Catherine's hands trembled slightly, but she clasped them together and held her ground. "Yes, because that little girl is fighting for her life, and I can help her. I buried my husband 6 months ago from the same fever. I learned how to treat it, how to bring the temperature down, how to make her comfortable. Send me away and you might lose her." Something in her words, in the raw pain behind them, made Neshoba pause. He looked at his daughter, at her small face flushed with fever, her breathing shallow and rapid. Then he looked at Halona, who nodded slightly. "She has been helping since sunrise, brother," Halona said softly in Apache. "Kiona's fever has come down. The white woman knows what she does." Neshoba's fists clenched at his sides. Every instinct screamed at him to throw this woman out, to handle this within his tribe, his family. White people had brought nothing but death and broken promises to his people. They had pushed the Apache from their ancestral lands, hunted them like animals, and now one of them stood in his home, touching his most precious treasure. But he also saw the truth in his sister's eyes, heard it in Catherine's voice. His daughter's breathing did seem easier than when he had left. The terrible rasping sound that had haunted his dreams during his long ride was quieter now. "Everyone out," he said suddenly, his voice hard. "Halona, tell the others not to come. The white woman stays, but everyone else leaves. Now." Halona's eyes widened in surprise, but she knew better than to question her brother when he used that tone. She gathered her medicine pouch and moved toward the entrance, pausing only to touch his arm briefly. "You made the right choice, brother," she whispered in Apache before slipping outside. The dwelling fell silent except for Kiona's labored breathing and the distant sounds of the village outside. Neshoba stood rigid, staring at Catherine Morgan, this white widow who had somehow invaded his life at its most vulnerable moment. She met his gaze without flinching, though he could see the pulse jumping in her throat. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why do you care about an Apache child? Your people would call you foolish for being here." Catherine's expression softened slightly. "Because I know what it is to love a child and fear losing them. Because when my husband was dying, a Navajo woman came to our homestead and showed me how to care for him, even though I was a stranger to her. She could not save him, but she gave me the knowledge to try. I owe that kindness forward." She paused, then added quietly, "And because no child should die if someone can prevent it, no matter what color their skin might be." Neshoba absorbed her words, searching for deception and finding none. He moved to his daughter's side, kneeling to press his hand against her forehead. Still too warm, but Catherine was right. It was not as terrible as before. He looked down at Kiona's face, so like her mother's, and felt his heart twist. "What must be done?" he asked, the question costing him more pride than Catherine could know. "She needs fluids, constantly," Catherine explained, kneeling on the opposite side of the mat. "Cool water, but not too cold. The cloth on her forehead must be changed every few minutes. We need to bring the fever down slowly, not shock her system. And she needs this." She reached into a pocket of her dress and pulled out a small glass vial. "Willow bark extract mixed with elderflower. It will help with the fever and the pain. I brought it from my homestead." Neshoba took the vial, examining it suspiciously. "How do I know this is not poison?" "You don't," Catherine said bluntly. "But ask yourself why I would ride into an Apache village alone, knowing I might not leave alive, just to poison one child. What would I gain?" He had no answer to that. The logic was sound, even if everything in him rebelled against trusting her. He uncorked the vial and sniffed it, recognizing the bitter scent of willow bark mixed with something sweeter. His own mother had used similar remedies, though the white woman's preparation was more refined. "How much?" he asked. 5 drops in water 3 times a day, Catherine instructed. "I gave her a dose this morning. She is due for another at sundown." Neshoba carefully recorked the vial and set it aside. He dipped the cloth into the water bowl and wrung it out, then gently placed it on Kiona's forehead, his large, calloused hands infinitely careful with his daughter's fragile form. "You will stay until she is well," he said, his tone making it clear this was not a request. "You will teach me everything you know about treating this fever, and then you will leave." "Agreed," Catherine said simply. They worked in silence for a while, changing the cloth, checking Kiona's breathing, adjusting her position to make her more comfortable. Neshoba watched everything Catherine did with fierce attention, memorizing each movement, each technique. He would not be dependent on this white woman's knowledge for long. As the afternoon shadows lengthened, Kiona stirred slightly and whimpered. Neshoba immediately leaned closer, murmuring soft words in Apache, telling her he was there. that she was safe, that she would get better. His voice, so hard moments before, became gentle as morning mist. Catherine watched him, and something in her chest tightened. She saw the love in every careful touch, heard it in every whispered word. This fierce warrior, who could probably kill her with his bare hands without breaking a sweat, was completely undone by his daughter's suffering. She understood that pain intimately. It was the same pain that had driven her here. Seeking purpose after loss had hollowed her out. "She is beautiful," Catherine said softly. "What is her name?" Neshoba hesitated, as if giving this information granted Catherine some power over them. But finally he answered, "Kiona. It means brown hills. Her mother named her during the golden season, when the earth turns the color of her eyes." "Where is her mother now?" Catherine asked, then immediately regretted the question when she saw his face close off completely. "The white man's spotted sickness took her," he said flatly. "2 summers ago, many in our village died. The sickness came from the soldiers at the fort." Catherine's heart sank. Smallpox. The disease had devastated native populations across the territories, and she knew many whites blamed the Indians themselves rather than acknowledging their own role in spreading it. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "Truly. I lost my parents to cholera when I was 16, and my husband James to this same fever that plagues your daughter. I know grief's face well." Neshoba studied Catherine's face in the fading light, seeing the truth of her words etched in the lines around her eyes and mouth. Perhaps they were not so different after all. He and this white widow. Both had loved deeply, both had lost, both carried scars that would never fully heal. But he could not afford to soften, not yet. Trust had to be earned, especially from someone whose people had caused his family so much pain. "Your sorrow does not change what your people have done to mine," he said quietly, but without the earlier edge of hostility. "But I will honor your help to my daughter. That is enough for now." As night fell over the canyon, Catherine showed Neshoba how to prepare a broth from the herbs she had brought, mixed with the provisions Halona had left behind. "She needs to eat something, even if just a little," Catherine explained, stirring the pot over the small fire. "The fever burns through her strength. Food will help her fight." Neshoba watched her work with practiced efficiency, noting how her hands never faltered despite their obvious tremor of exhaustion. "When did you last sleep?" he asked abruptly. Catherine glanced up, surprised by the question. "I am not sure. Yesterday morning, perhaps. Time becomes unclear when you are worried." "You cannot help Kiona if you collapse," Neshoba said pragmatically. "You will rest. I will watch her." "I can manage a bit longer," Catherine protested, but even as she spoke, she swayed slightly where she sat. Neshoba moved with the swift grace that made him such a formidable warrior, catching her elbow to steady her. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through both of them, and they froze for a moment, suddenly aware of how close they were. Catherine's eyes widened, and Neshoba released her as if burned, stepping back quickly. "Rest," he repeated, his voice gruff. "That is an order, not a request." Catherine wanted to argue, but her body betrayed her with a jaw-cracking yawn. "Just for an hour," she conceded. "Then you must rest too. We will take turns through the night." She arranged herself on the far side of the dwelling, using her shawl as a pillow, and within minutes her breathing had deepened into sleep. Neshoba shook his head slightly, amazed that she could simply surrender to unconsciousness in the home of a man she did not know, in a village where she was surrounded by people who had every reason to hate her kind. Either she was extraordinarily brave or extraordinarily foolish. He suspected it might be both. Throughout the long night, they maintained their vigil, trading places every few hours. Neshoba found himself watching Catherine as she tended Kiona, noting the gentleness of her touch, the soft words she murmured even though his daughter could not understand English. There was something almost sacred in the way she cared for a child, not her own, asking nothing in return except the chance to help. When dawn broke, painting the canyon walls in shades of gold and crimson, Kiona's fever had dropped noticeably. Her breathing was easier, and when Neshoba touched her forehead, he felt cool skin instead of burning heat. Relief flooded through him so powerfully that his hands shook. "The worst has passed," Catherine said softly, seeing his reaction. She sat across from him, her hair disheveled, her dress wrinkled from the long night, but her eyes bright with shared joy. She will need several more days of care, but I believe she will recover fully. Neshoba looked at his daughter, then at Catherine, and for the first time since she had arrived, he allowed himself to truly see her. Not as a white woman, not as an intruder, but simply as Catherine, as someone who had stepped into the darkness with him and helped him find light again. "You saved her life," he said, the words coming with difficulty. Gratitude was not something he expressed often, especially to outsiders. "I owe you a debt I cannot repay." Catherine shook her head firmly. "You owe me nothing. I did what anyone with a heart should do." She paused, then added more quietly, "But I would ask one thing. Let me stay a few more days just to be certain Kiona is truly on the mend. After that, I will leave as you wish." Neshoba considered this. Every practical instinct told him to send her away now, before her presence complicated things further. Already he had noticed the way some of his people looked at him yesterday evening when word spread that he had ordered everyone out, but kept the white woman inside. There would be questions, perhaps even challenges to his judgment. But looking at his daughter's peaceful face, seeing the steady rise and fall of her chest, he knew he could not refuse. "You may stay," he agreed. "But you will move to Halona's dwelling. It is not proper for you to remain here with me unchaperoned." A faint smile crossed Catherine's weary face. "I appreciate your concern for propriety, though I suspect I lost any claim to reputation the moment I rode into this village alone." "Perhaps," Neshoba acknowledged, "but my people will respect the boundaries I set, and I would not have your name or mine become the subject of idle talk." Over the following days, Catherine split her time between caring for Kiona and quietly making herself useful around the village. She helped the women with tasks she knew, drawing water, grinding corn, mending clothing. At first, they regarded her with deep suspicion, but gradually, as they saw her genuine willingness to work and her devotion to Kiona, some of the walls began to lower. Halona became Catherine's unlikely ally and friend. The Apache woman was only a few years younger than Catherine, with a quick smile and an even quicker mind. She had lost her own husband in a skirmish with soldiers 3 years ago and understood the particular loneliness of widowhood. "My brother is not usually so welcoming to white people," Halona confided one afternoon as they worked together to tan a deer hide. "You must have made quite an impression." Catherine ducked her head, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. "I simply did what needed to be done. Any healer would have acted the same." "Perhaps," Halona said thoughtfully, "but not every healer would have stayed when ordered to leave by an angry warrior twice her size. You have courage, Catherine Morgan. That is rare in any person." As Kiona grew stronger, she became fascinated by Catherine. The little girl, who was 6 years old, would watch Catherine with wide, curious eyes, occasionally reaching out to touch the white woman's auburn hair with gentle fingers. Catherine, in turn, found herself falling in love with the intelligent, spirited child who reminded her painfully of the children she and James had hoped to have someday. Neshoba observed all of this from a careful distance. He spent his days hunting and fulfilling his duties to the tribe, but his evenings were devoted to Kiona, and increasingly, he found Catherine present during those times. She would tell stories of her life before, of growing up in Missouri, of her journey west with James seeking a new start. In return, Neshoba began to share fragments of his own history, of learning to hunt with his father, of earning his warrior name, of the proud heritage of his people. They were careful never to be alone together for too long, always ensuring Halona or Kiona provided appropriate presence. But despite these precautions, or perhaps because of them, something was growing between them. It was there in the long looks they exchanged, in the way their hands would accidentally brush when passing Kiona between them, in the conversations that stretched later into the evening with each passing night. On the 5th day, Chief Neol summoned Neshoba to his lodge. The old leader was a man of wisdom and experience, having guided their people through countless challenges. He sat on his decorated mat, his weathered face impassive as Neshoba entered and took his place across the fire. "The white woman," Neol began without preamble. "She has been here nearly a week. People are beginning to wonder about your intentions." Neshoba kept his expression neutral, though his heart rate increased. She saved Kiona's life. I would not dishonor that gift by sending her away before my daughter is fully recovered. And is your daughter not recovered now? Neol asked, his dark eyes sharp. I have seen Kiona playing with the other children yesterday. She seems well to me. It was true. Kiona had regained her strength with remarkable speed, bouncing back with the resilience of youth. There was no medical reason for Catherine to remain any longer. But Neshoba found himself reluctant to see her go, a reluctance that troubled him deeply. A few more days, Neshoba said. To be certain the fever does not return. Neol studied him for a long moment. You are one of our finest warriors, Neshoba. Your judgment has always been sound, but I must ask, is this truly about Kiona's health, or about something else? The question hung in the air between them. Neshoba wanted to deny it, to insist that his only concern was for his daughter. But he had never lied to his chief, and he would not start now. I do not know, he admitted quietly. She is not what I expected. She has honor, courage, and a good heart. She works without complaint. She has shown nothing but respect to our people, and Kiona has grown attached to her. And you? Neol pressed. Have you grown attached as well? Neshoba's jaw tightened. It does not matter what I feel. She is white. I am Apache. Our peoples are enemies. There is no path forward, even if I wished there to be one. Neol's weathered face softened with something approaching sympathy. Our peoples are enemies because men in distant places make it so. But here, in this canyon, I see only a man who has been alone too long and a woman who has shown herself worthy of respect. The question is not what others think, Neshoba. The question is what your heart tells you is right. Neshoba left the chief's lodge with more questions than answers, his mind turbulent as a summer storm. He found himself walking toward Halona's dwelling, where he knew Catherine would be helping prepare the evening meal. But before he arrived, he heard raised voices and quickened his pace. A group of young warriors had surrounded Catherine near the central fire. She stood tall despite the obvious menace in their posture, her chin raised defiantly. Neshoba recognized Kuruk, a hot-headed fighter who had lost family to white soldiers and harbored deep hatred for all outsiders. You should not be here, white woman, Kuruk was saying in broken English. You bring bad spirits, bad luck. You should go before something happens. I will leave when Neshoba says I may leave, Catherine replied, her voice steady though Neshoba could see the tension in her shoulders. Until then, I stay. Neshoba is foolish, Kuruk spat, blinded by a pretty face. But some of us see clearly. We remember what white people do. We do not forget. I have not asked you to forget, Catherine said quietly. I know my people have caused yours terrible suffering. I know there is blood and broken promises between us. But I am not your enemy. I came here to help a sick child, nothing more. Enough. Neshoba's voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. He stepped into the circle, placing himself between Catherine and the angry warriors. Kuruk, you overstep. Catherine Morgan is here as my guest under my protection. If you challenge her, you challenge me. Kuruk's eyes flashed dangerously. Then perhaps I challenge you, Neshoba. Perhaps you have forgotten who you are. Forgotten what the white men did to your wife, to our people. This woman makes you weak. The insult hung in the air, and Neshoba felt the familiar rush of battle readiness flood his veins. But before he could respond, Catherine stepped around him, placing herself between the two warriors. Stop, she said firmly. I will not be the cause of violence among you. Kuruk is right. My presence here creates problems. I will gather my things and leave tonight. No, Neshoba said immediately, surprised by the force of his own reaction. You will not leave because of baseless threats. Catherine turned to face him, and he saw something in her eyes that made his breath catch. It was not fear or anger, but rather a deep sadness mixed with understanding. Neshoba, I appreciate everything you have done, but I cannot stay where I am not wanted. I will not come between you and your people. You are wanted, Neshoba said, then realized how the words sounded. He felt heat rise to his face but pressed on. Kiona wants you here. Halona wants you here. Chief Neol has not ordered you to leave, and I want you here. The admission cost him, and he saw Catherine's eyes widen with surprise. Around them, the gathered warriors shifted uncomfortably. Kuruk's expression darkened further. You shame yourself, Kuruk hissed. Shame your wife's memory. Shame all of us. Something inside Neshoba snapped. In one fluid motion he grabbed Kuruk by his vest and pulled him close, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. My wife's memory is mine to honor, not yours. And I honor it by choosing to live, by choosing to let my daughter know joy again, by choosing not to let hatred consume me as it has consumed you. Catherine Morgan has shown more courage and honor in 1 week than you have shown in a lifetime of angry words. He released Kuruk with a slight push. Now leave before I forget that we are brothers and treat you as the fool you are acting like. Kuruk glared at both of them for a long moment, then spat at the ground near Catherine's feet and stalked away, his companions following. The crowd that had gathered began to disperse, some looking disapproving, others thoughtful. Catherine released a shaky breath. Thank you, but you did not have to do that. You did not have to make an enemy for my sake. Kuruk has been looking for a reason to challenge me for months, Neshoba said dismissively. This changes nothing. But they both knew it was not entirely true. Everything had changed, and they could no longer pretend otherwise. That evening, Neshoba asked Catherine to walk with him away from the village, toward the canyon overlook where he often went to think. Halona agreed to watch Kiona, giving her brother a knowing look that made him feel transparent as water. They sat on the red rocks, as the sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, the vast desert stretching endlessly before them. For a long time, neither spoke, simply letting the peace of the place settle over them. Tell me about your husband, Neshoba said finally, if it does not pain you too much. Catherine smiled softly. James was a good man, gentle, kind, full of dreams about the life we would build together. He wanted to farm, to create something lasting. He was not built for this harsh land, I think, but he tried so hard. Her voice caught. When the fever took him, he fought for 3 weeks. I did everything I knew, but it was not enough. Near the end, he made me promise I would not give up, would not let grief destroy me. He made me promise to find purpose again. And have you? Neshoba asked quietly. Found purpose? I thought I had lost it forever, Catherine admitted. After James died, I stayed on our homestead, but it felt empty, meaningless. I was going through the motions of living without actually being alive. Then I heard about the sickness in your village, and something in me responded. Maybe it was a chance to save someone when I could not save James. Maybe it was just needing to feel useful again. She turned to look at him. I did not expect to find what I found here. What did you find? Neshoba asked, though his heart already knew the answer. Catherine met his gaze steadily. Connection. Purpose. A reason to wake up in the morning. A little girl who makes me laugh. A sister friend in Halona. And you, Neshoba. I found you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Neshoba felt his carefully constructed walls crumbling. He had spent 2 years building them, brick by brick, using his grief and anger as mortar. But this white woman, with sad blue eyes and a warrior's heart, had somehow found the cracks and was letting light through. I swore I would never care for anyone again, he said roughly. After my wife died, I told myself that Kiona was enough, that I needed nothing else. Love brings too much pain when it is lost. Yes, Catherine agreed softly. It does. But is the answer to never love again? To close ourselves off from all possibility of joy because we fear the pain? James would not have wanted that for me, and I suspect your wife would not have wanted it for you. Neshoba thought of his wife, of her gentle spirit and generous heart. She had always pushed him to be better, to see beyond the surface of things. If she could see him now, what would she say? He thought she might approve of Catherine, might recognize in her a kindred spirit. My people and your people are at war, he said, though it sounded like a weak protest even to his own ears. How could we ever find peace together when our worlds are so divided? I do not know, Catherine admitted, but I know that peace begins with individual choices, with 2 people deciding that hatred serves no purpose, with choosing to see the person instead of the skin color. She reached out hesitantly and placed her hand over his. I know what I feel, Neshoba. I know it is complicated and possibly impossible, but I cannot deny it anymore. These past days with you and Kiona, They have been the happiest I have felt since James died. You have given me hope again." Neshoba looked down at their joined hands, his dark skin against her pale. So different, yet the warmth was the same, the connection undeniable. He thought of all the reasons he should pull away, should send her back to her homestead and never see her again. But then he thought of Kiona's laughter when Catherine told her stories, of the peace he felt when Catherine was near, of the way his heart had begun to thaw after 2 years of winter. "I do not know how this can work," he said honestly, "but I know I do not want you to leave. I know that when I think of tomorrow, I want you in it, and the day after, and the day after that." He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through hers. "You terrify me, Catherine Morgan. You make me feel things I thought were dead. You make me hope, and hope is a dangerous thing." "Then let us be dangerous together," Catherine said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Let us choose hope over fear, love over hatred. Let us show our peoples that there is another way." Neshoba pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face. "If we do this, there will be consequences. Kuruk is not the only one who will oppose us. Your people will not accept me. Mine will not accept you. We will belong nowhere. Or we will belong everywhere," Catherine countered. "We will create our own place, our own family, you, me, and Kiona. That is enough." "Is it?" Neshoba asked, searching her eyes. "Is it truly enough for you to give up your world?" "I already gave up my world when James died," Catherine said simply. "Everything since has been searching for a new one. I think maybe I just found it." Neshoba felt something break open inside him, some final wall crumbling to dust. He leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers, breathing in her scent, feeling her warmth. "Then stay," he whispered. "Not for a few more days. Not until Kiona is well. Stay forever, be part of our lives. Let me show you that love is possible again." "Yes," Catherine breathed. "Yes, I will stay." They sat together as darkness fell, holding each other, talking about the future they would build. It would not be easy. There would be resistance, perhaps even danger. But they had both survived loss and grief. They had both learned that life was too short and too precious to waste on fear. When they returned to the village, they found Chief Niol waiting. The old man looked at them, at their joined hands, and nodded slowly. "I see you have made your choice, Neshoba." "I have," Neshoba confirmed. "Catherine will stay. She will become part of our family, our tribe, if you will allow it." Niol considered this carefully. "The path you choose is not easy. There will be those who oppose it. But I have watched this woman these past days. She has shown respect, humility, and courage. She has helped our people without asking for anything in return. If you believe she is worthy of your heart, then I trust your judgment. She may stay." Relief flooded through both of them. Halona emerged from her dwelling with Kiona, who immediately ran to Catherine, wrapping her small arms around the white woman's legs. "You stay?" she asked in careful English that Catherine had been teaching her. "I stay," Catherine confirmed, lifting the little girl into her arms. "If you will have me, little one, I would very much like to stay." Kiona beamed and kissed Catherine's cheek, then reached out for her father. Neshoba took his daughter, and Catherine moved to his side, the three of them forming a picture of unity that would have seemed impossible just days before. In the weeks that followed, Catherine proved herself repeatedly. She learned Apache customs and language with dedication. She earned respect through her healing skills and her willingness to work alongside the women. Slowly, most of the tribe came to accept her presence, though a few like Kuruk remained hostile. Neshoba and Catherine were careful to honor tradition. They courted properly, with Halona as chaperone, allowing their relationship to develop at a pace the tribe could accept. But everyone could see the love growing between them, could see how Kiona blossomed with Catherine in her life, could see how Neshoba smiled again after so long. When Neshoba finally asked Catherine to marry him according to Apache custom, she agreed without hesitation. The ceremony was simple but beautiful, blending traditions from both their cultures. They exchanged vows under the vast Arizona sky, promising to honor each other, to respect each other's heritage, and to build a bridge between their worlds through their love. As they stood together, hands joined with Kiona between them and the tribe surrounding them, Catherine felt James's presence like a blessing. She knew he would approve, would want her to find happiness again. And Neshoba felt his wife's spirit in the wind, gentle and approving, releasing him to love once more. Their life together was not without challenges. There were those on both sides who never accepted their union. Catherine's few remaining white neighbors shunned her completely when word spread of her marriage to an Apache warrior. Some in the tribe never fully trusted her, always seeing her as an outsider. But none of that mattered when Neshoba came home from hunting to find Catherine and Kiona laughing together, or when Catherine woke in the morning wrapped in her husband's strong arms,